What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine and welcome to the main event deep dive for UFC 273. We have Alexander Volkanovski going against the Korean Zombie. Really looking forward to this main event. I'm here as always on a Monday with Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, are you looking forward to this main event fight?
Yeah, man. How could you not? Really, these are two great fighters, and I mean that the memories of the Ortega Volkanovski war and that third round of that fight are still kind of fresh in my mind, especially after watching the tape. And this is one of the best 145ers to ever walk the face of the planet, and he's fighting one of the most exciting fighters in the division here on short notice. So yeah, I mean, this is a great fight, dude. Let's get into all the stats here. Let's get into all the angles, all the tape. See if we can find a way to make some money on a fight that has a line that's already juiced to the tits. There's nothing we can do about line movement beating us, Brady, but we got to find our angles. And the only way to do that is to go balls deep into all the stats, all the props, and figure out a way to make some money on this fight.
Yes, sir. Can't wait to talk about it. Yeah, we have a big favorite in Volkanovski, but we're going to try to find another way rather than laying the minus 800 on him. But yeah, as always, guys, we're going to go through the tail of the tape, the experience stats, the finish stats, the striking stats, grappling stats, the strength of schedule. We're going to talk it over with the chat, and then we're going to talk about the odds as well. Before we get into it, if you guys can please leave a like on the video. Also subscribe here to the MMA Engine. It is much, much appreciated. Going to start bringing out some new content, and we already have a ton of stuff going on the channel already, so would appreciate if you guys do hit the sub button. Let's keep growing the channel. Much thanks to you all. All right, so let's start getting right into it. We have Alexander Volkanovski going against the Korean Zombie. We have Volkanovski, 33 years old, 5'6" with a 71-inch reach. The Korean Zombie, 35 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. Volkanovski, 2 years younger, and it's going to be the Korean Zombie with a 1-inch height advantage and also a 1-inch reach advantage. We'll take a look at their last 5 fights. Volkanovski is 5-0 in his last 5, had a knockout win against Chad Mendes, had a decision win against Jose Aldo, a decision win against Max Holloway, a split decision win against Max Holloway the second time around, and then a decision win against Brian Ortega. As far as the Korean Zombie, had a knockout loss in the last second to Yair Rodriguez, had a knockout win against Renato Moicano, a knockout win against Frankie Edgar, a decision loss to Brian Ortega, and then a decision win against Dan Ige. So, Uncle Weezy, anything really sticking out to you in the tail of the tape? It seems like pretty even to me, right?
Yeah, it does. When you look at the experience numbers, the tail of the tape, the last 5, you're really going to see something that's really kind of similar on both sides. And even when we get into the strength of schedule and stuff, this is a very close matchup. This is very well-matched fighters. These guys are both elite. It's just that we're going to find out where the levels lie, because we do have one of these guys that's wearing the strap, the other guy's chasing it. And the guy at the top of the mountain has been a fantastic minute winner thus far. And he's got great fight IQ and has more than one way to win minutes and win fights. So, yeah, man, it's very close in the tail of the tape. It's very close in the experience. So, I mean, we're going to have to find other angles in order to differentiate these cats.
Yeah, for sure. So my watch was going off for some reason, but yeah, in terms of the experience, what is sticking out to you there?
So there's a couple of things that stick out here. Now, it's very close, right? Volkanovski just one more pro fight, about 50 more minutes in the cage. But here's the thing. Korean Zombie has almost a 15-year career, but 23 fights. So about 1.5 fights a year. Definitely not very active, and even less active in the last 5 years of his career. Well, Volkanovski has 24 fights, but that's in less than 10 years. So he's been fighting about one more time per year than the Korean Zombie has over his career. So, even though these guys are very, only one fight separates them in pro experience, only about 50 minutes of cage time separates them in pro experience, it's just Volkanovski who's been the busier fighter. And then if we look at the UFC experience, they both have 10 UFC fights. It's about 35 more minutes in the UFC cage for Volkanovski and an average fight time that is about 4 minutes longer. So, if we go to the finish stats, that's where we can find a little bit of a differential between these two guys. And that's that the Korean Zombie is a guy who really does rely on the early finish in order to get wins. We're talking about an 82% finish rate over 17 wins. So I believe that is about 14 out of his 17 wins coming inside the distance. And for Volkanovski, it's a 61% finish rate over 23 wins, but he's finished 30% of those 10 wins inside the distance at the UFC level, while for the Korean Zombie, it's 86%. So it's 6 of 7 wins. So this guy's only got one decision win in the in the 7 wins that he has at the UFC level, and he only has 3 decision wins out of 17 wins. So it just kind of goes to show you right away, before we even get into the striking stats and into the grappling stats, sometimes these finish stats, Brady, they'll tell us who the minute winner is. And when you got a guy like Zombie who's finishing 6 of his 7 UFC wins, that shows that he's a great moment winner. While Volkanovski, who's got an average fight time of 16 minutes and has won 70% of his wins by decision, and he's never lost, goes to show you, when that guy's in the cage, from round to round, from minute to minute, he's finding ways to be better than his opponent on the feet and on the ground. Great fight IQ, great all-around mixed martial arts game out of Alexander Volkanovski.
Yeah, and I think that's why we see him as such a big favorite. I think it's a great point you bring up. Like, we have a very good minute winner, probably one of the best minute winners in the UFC in Volkanovski, where you have the moment winner in the Korean Zombie, who up until his last fight, he finished all of his wins inside the UFC, but he did take Dan Ige to a decision. But yeah, finished win over Frankie Edgar in the first round, finished win over Renato Moicano in the first round, finished win over Dennis Bermudez in the first round, finished win against Dustin Poirier way back in the day as well. This guy is very, very dangerous anywhere the fight goes. Underrated grappling that he showed off in his last fight against Ige, and then, of course, a ton of power. So, I mean, the Korean Zombie's not like a bum by any means, but it's just like Alexander Volkanovski is one of the best fighters in the UFC. He doesn't have many flaws. He's good everywhere, good striking, good cardio, good output, good wrestling, good grappling. He's the full package. I think that's why we're seeing Volkanovski be such a big favorite. I think he's going to be winning, 95% of this fight. But, Zombie, if he's going to win, it's probably going to be some finish. I don't see him winning much minutes here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's one of the ways you can bet Zombie this week, is just say, all right, if he gets this win, it's going to be a round 1, round 2, or round 3 knockout, where he just lands a huge counter shot. And, he's obviously capable of it. But, when you look at the striking numbers for both of these guys, you're going to see that minute winning that we already saw in the finish stats for Volkanovski, and the average fight time, and all those little factors that we see in the experience can show us that he's a great minute winner. But then when we look at the striking stats, right, 6.42 significant strikes landed per minute, only 3.34 absorbed. So he's almost outlanding his opponents 2-1 per minute in significant strikes. He's landing his significant strikes at a 57% accuracy over 10 fights. I mean, that's crazy accuracy at this level. The guys that he's fighting, guys like Holloway, twice, 10 rounds in the cage with Max Holloway, and this guy's landing at an almost 57% clip. That's ridiculous. Not great power numbers, though. Maybe 4 knockdowns in 10 fights, 0.37 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And then we see that 60% striking defense. The fact that he's only been knocked down once in 10 fights shows that he's got a serious chin. And Korean Zombie lands a little bit more than his opponents land on him per minute. He lands 3.89, absorbs 3.67, 42.74% striking accuracy, 4 knockdowns landed in 10 UFC fights. He's landing a knockdown on 0.82% of the significant strikes that he lands. That's averaging out to 0.48 knockdowns per 15 minutes. So even though we know Korean Zombie's the more powerful guy, the more flashy, big strike landing type of striker here, we see that he's over the aggregate, over the 10 fights that Zombie has and over the 10 fights that Volkanovski has, he's averaging less than 0.1 more knockdowns per 15 minutes. So it goes to show you how efficient and how strong Volkanovski's been over his career thus far. And then we see, a 54.38% striking defense, which is okay. It's not terrible and it's not fantastic. It's meaty part of the curve, but he's actually getting knocked down more than than Volkanovski is Zombie's been knocked down 3 times in 10 fights, and Volkanovski's only been knocked down 1 time. So yeah, man, I mean, Volkanovski's going to be mixing in a little bit of wrestling maybe in this spot. He's going to be throwing more strikes as he throws 11.29 per minute, and his opponents only throw 8.5. So it goes to show you Volkanovski, with that fantastic conditioning that he has, he will turn up the volume as the fight goes on, as he kind of downloads all the information that the opponent gives him. And the fact that he's busy and he's first helps quite a bit. But he's going to have to be careful about that, especially early in the fight, because we know how Zombie fights on the feet. He's not particularly throwing a lot of volume, Brady, but we do see him kind of marching down his opponent, waiting to counter. And if you're reckless about being first and aren't defensively responsible and getting your hands back to your face when you're throwing that jab, Zombie can absolutely hit you with one of those hooks and put you in a bad place. So he's going to have to be careful, but Volkanovski always is. He's very defensively responsible here. Over 60% striking defense over the quality of competition that he's faced thus far in the UFC is very good. So, you really got to give Volkanovski a pretty serious striking advantage here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, what sticks out to me the most for Volkanovski is going to be the insane volume that he brings. I mean, it's just crazy going back and, Max Holloway is the volume king. I mean, when Max Holloway is on the card, you're going to want to play him in DraftKings more often than not. And it was just crazy to see that Volkanovski, not only in the first fight outstruck him, but even in the second fight outstruck him. He landed 137 significant strikes to Max Holloway's 102. I mean, who is out there outstriking Max Holloway? And it's really nobody besides Alexander Volkanovski did just that, and he did it twice. I had a max bet on Volkanovski Holloway too. Watching it live, I was like very uncomfortable. I kind of thought Holloway got it done, but I think round 1, 2, and 3 were very, very close. 19 to 19 significant strikes in round 1. 22 to 21 in favor of Volkanovski in round 2, but we did see that Holloway hurt Volkanovski, I think, in both those first 2 rounds. And then you saw as the fight goes on, typically we see Max Holloway, kind of pulling away, landing a ton of volume. It was actually Volkanovski who started, pulling away, throwing the more volume out, landing Holloway 34 to 24 in the 4th round and 37 to 23 in the 5th round. I mean, he's doing that to a guy like Max Holloway. So in terms of the minute winning, it's just really hard to see, the Korean Zombie go out here and, be competitive, honestly. I think he can have some moments, maybe he can steal a round or 2 with a big moment, like a knockdown, a big shot landing. Maybe he hurts Volkanovski, but, outside of that, I think it should be smooth sailing in terms of the striking for Volkanovski for most of this fight. But I don't think we could completely, completely ignore the danger that the Korean Zombie does bring. And we have seen Volkanovski drop before. He did get hurt twice in that second Max Holloway fight. So it's not going to be impossible for the Korean Zombie to hurt him. I just see why Volkanovski is such a big favorite, especially in terms of the striking. In the grappling, I don't think there's going to be much grappling. Do you think, Volkanovski is going to come out here, maybe mix in takedowns? I think he can if he wants to. As far as Korean Zombie taking down Volkanovski, I don't really see that happening. So I think if anybody goes for takedowns, it'll be Volkanovski. But I think this fight primarily does play on the feet. Do you think either guy goes for takedowns here?
Yeah, it's a good question because, you see how smart this guy is, right? Volkanovski, when he first came into the UFC, against Kasuya, 3 takedown attempts, against Hirota, 7, against Shane Young, 14 takedown attempts, against Jeremy Kennedy, 3, against Darren Elkins, 12. But then in the next 5 fights against Mendez, Aldo, Holloway, and Ortega, we see 16 takedown attempts in those 5 fights. We see him going to the takedowns a lot less, and he only gets 3 takedowns out of those 16 attempts in the last 5 fights. So we've seen we've seen Volkanovski be just a lot more comfortable winning minutes on the feet, especially against guys like Ortega, who you don't really want to be on the ground against that guy. We saw in round 3 of the Ortega Volkanovski match, that's how Ortega wins. Let's face it, that Volkanovski Ortega fight, it's very similar styles that Chan Sung Jung and Brian Ortega bring. While Chan Sung Jung wins minutes with his striking, it's and he's even gotten that twister win, you know. It's Ortega who's winning minutes with the grappling. He'll hurt you with a big shot and then jump on a submission and finish the fight. And we've seen Ortega over and over lose a ton of minutes and then win a moment and win a fight. And you know, Chan Sung Jung can do the exact same thing here. So, but you know, the thing about what I'm seeing here in terms of Volkanovski, he used to win a bunch of minutes in control time positions. 207 seconds against Elkins, 535 seconds out of 597 against Jeremy Kennedy, 502 seconds out of 900 against Shane Young, 318 out of 900 against Hirota, and 261 out of 426 out of Kasuya. But we don't really see the Korean Zombie giving up a ton of control time here. The most he's ever given up was 300 seconds against Jose Aldo. Other than that, you know, his takedown defense usually holds up pretty good here. And when we look at these grappling numbers, you know, we obviously see that Volkanovski attempting 5.5 takedowns per fight and Korean Zombie attempting 1.7. That, you know, it's probably going to be Volkanovski. If one of these guys attempts to grapple, it's probably going to be Alex. Zombie, almost 77% takedown defense. He's getting taken down less than one time per 15 minutes, and he's only been controlled for 11.63% of his UFC career. So that would be about, you know, I would say less than 14 minutes on those 8 takedowns that he's yielded, that Zombie's been controlled. And it was Aldo that was doing most of that. So yeah, the grappling, I don't see it coming into play as much, but I think that Volkanovski can absolutely mix in takedowns if he feels like the exchanges on the feet are being too close for comfort here. Zombie at 1.7 takedown attempts per fight and less than 1 takedown per 15 minutes. It's much harder to count on this guy winning any minutes in the grappling exchanges, as we've seen Alexander Volkanovski over a 161-minute sample size be controlled less than 5 minutes in the UFC, actually less than 6 minutes. But that's a lot. You know, I mean, to be controlled less than 4% of your career over a 10-fight sample size, it indicates that this guy is almost impossible to win minutes on the ground against. So, yeah, I really do believe that while Volkanovski has a nice advantage in the striking, the volume, the accuracy, the defense, that he's also got the ability to be able to use the grappling exchanges to win minutes as well here.
Yep, for sure. I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like, you know, say at the end of the round, maybe mixing a takedown, seal off the round. If he gets hit with a hard shot, I think he can use takedowns to kind of bail himself out. So, yeah, I think he could mix in some takedowns here, but I do think primarily this does play out on the feet. So, yeah, thus far, we went through the tail of the tape experience, striking stats, and grappling stats. I don't see a ton of advantages thus far for the Korean Zombie, and you know, we see that Volkanovski is minus 800. Is there like any advantages for Korean Zombie? Maybe in terms of the pure power would be the one thing, right?
Maybe the pure power. You know, Volkanovski hits hard too, but you know what we see Zombie doing well is pressuring people and countering. And you know, Volkanovski is just so smart and so defensively responsible. I think that Zombie's gonna have to show some kind of a new wrinkle here in order to find a way to catch Volkanovski off guard here, because just walking him down and waiting to counter with a big shot is something that Volkanovski's seen before, and he's going to be able to deal with. And, you know, I mean, he's dealt with the length of guys like Ortega and Holloway very well. So Zombie's not even as long as those guys, you know, only a 72-inch reach for Zombie, 71 for Volkanovski. You know, on short notice against somebody with the kind of conditioning that Volkanovski has, the kind of minute winning that he has. And then when we look even closer into Korean Zombie's career and we see those 3 losses to Ortega, to Yair Rodriguez, and to Jose Aldo, right? All 3 of those fights went into the 4th round. You know, he's only won 2 fights that have went past the 4th round. And that one of them was against Ige, and one of them was against Poirier when he got that sub late or early in the 4th round against Poirier. So other than that, you know, when fights go deep, you know, he's not winning those fights because he either gets knocked out late because he's so dangerous early and not late, or he's not a good enough minute winner to take it to the judges and win, except for in the case with Ige, and he got a late finish against Dustin Poirier. But that late finish against Dustin Poirier was in 2012.
Yeah.
It was 10 years ago. So when we look past that now, you see when he's winning fights, Leonard Garcia, second round sub, Mark Hominick, first round knockout in 7 seconds. Dennis Bermudez, first round knockout in 2.5 minutes. Renato Moicano, first round knockout in less than a minute. Frankie Edgar, first round knockout, less than 3 minutes. You see a pattern here? This guy wins moments, not minutes. So, yeah, it looks like, this guy's going to have to land a big shot. If you want to put a big bet on Volkanovski at minus 800, please don't do it. You don't win money like that. Dude, we've talked about this, right? When you're laying minus 800, you need to be right 9 out of 10 times in order to break even. So you need to be, your guy needs to win 100% of the time over 10 times to just win like 1 unit, to be ahead 1 unit. And every time you lose, you're down a unit. So, you really can't do that. But I think that if you are going to bet Volkanovski, you can just kind of hedge with round 1 and 2 KOs by Zombie, because that's kind of his path, is landing that big shot early, surprising him, and just jumping on a submission or, ground and pound finish. Other than that, it's really hard to see this guy winning minutes here.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, I was curious. I was like, what is the decision only for the Korean Zombie? Because I really don't see. What's decision only for Volkanovski? Because I don't see Korean Zombie winning minutes in this fight. I want to get your guess. What do you think DraftKings Sportsbook put the decision only for Volkanovski? I'll give you a hint. I've never seen anything like this.
Okay, so if the money line's minus 800 and DraftKings thinks that this thing's going to decision, they would have to set it at least minus 1,000, I would think. But let's say minus 1,200.
Minus 2,000 decision only.
Wow. So 20 units. 20 units to win 1 unit.
Let's do it, Weezy. 20 units to win one.
God,
what could go wrong?
Let's just make it 100 units. That way we can get 5 units and then we can go get a burger someplace.
Imagine 100 units.
My God, man, minus 2. That's crazy, dude. That is absolutely crazy.
That is nuts.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They don't want any action on that line whatsoever.
Yeah, because there's some fights where you're like, okay, this guy is going to win on the minutes. He should win by decision if it goes there, and you get like minus like 600, 700, even that's crazy. But minus 2,000, it really tells you something there, right?
It tells you how confident the bookies are that Zombie's not going to win minutes.
No.
You can't get minus 2,000 means it's less than a 5% chance now. Now it's not a 10% chance, it's a 5% chance. It's 1 out of 20, 1 out of 21, really, which is less than 5. So, yeah, the bookies are fucking confident, and they're basically saying, please don't bet this line because it's free money, because the only chance that Zombie really does have is a knockout here.
Yeah, like you can't even parlay that, nothing. They're just... Yeah, that's crazy. But let's talk about the strength of schedule a little bit. Both guys have obviously fought really good competition, and then we'll talk about the betting perspective a little bit, see how we can bet this other than land that minus 2K.
Yeah, so, the strength of schedule stats, not much of a help here because we can look at the overall and see Volkanovski's fighting guys with a 2.54 win-to-loss ratio, and for Zombie, it's 2.04. Whenever you see a number over 1.5, it's really good. So, Zombie's fighting extremely experienced competition with 14 total fights. Same for Volkanovski with 12.4. So they're both fighting elite competition. When we look at the wins, they're both extremely impressive. 8.9 wins and 3.5 losses is the average record of a guy that Volkanovski's beating. And the average record of the guy that Zombie's beating even has more wins, 9.86 wins and 5.14 losses. So both of these guys are not only fighting, but they're beating the best that the UFC has to offer. If we had to decide which one is a little bit better, it's Volkanovski. But and then we see that Zombie losing to really good competition as well. So yeah, slight edge here for Volkanovski in terms of the strength schedule, according to the metric.
Sounds good to me. So we have a big favorite here in Alexander Volkanovski. He opened up at minus 330. Looks like that was back on January 15th. And currently he is sitting at minus 800. This is on Bet Online. Looks like the best line you can get on Volkanovski is minus 700 on Caesars. And then we have the Korean Zombie open up plus 270, and he is currently plus 500. So Volkanovski, the biggest favorite on the entire card. And after talking about it, I mean, I just can't really argue that. I think he should be a favorite. I think he should be a big favorite outside of a zombie knockout. I think Volkanovski does get it done. But I guess the hard part for me, I mean, it's easy to pick a minus 800 favorite in Volkanovski. The hard part is, how do we bet this fight? How do we bet him? Is he going to win by decision, knockout, submission? But let's take a look at some of these props. So I guess first of all, we'll get your thoughts on the over-unders and fight goes and doesn't go. So the over-under is set at 4.5. The over 4.5 is minus 155. The under 4.5 is plus 125. The fight goes to decision, minus 155. The fight doesn't go to decision, is plus 125. We'll start there. What are your thoughts on these violence props?
So this is a 5-round fight, and the Zombie, when he's been finished, they've been in the 4th round and the 5th round. So I kind of feel like if you're trying to make some money here, maybe what you have to say is that not only does Volkanovski win this fight, but he gets Zombie out of there before the bell. He wins it inside the distance. If he's able to do that, then maybe we could see a little bit of profit, where you're not laying minus 800, but you're actually getting like plus, you get plus money on the under 4.5, you said, right?
Plus money on the under 4.5. The over
Yeah.
is
So,
minus 155.
yeah, because I mean, like, but still, dude, I mean, Ortega landed that spinning elbow on the Zombie that was so flush that should have put him out, and he went another 3 rounds after that happened and survived the end of the 2nd round. So I mean, he's a hard guy to finish. Yair Rodriguez finished him left with 1 second left in the 5th round. So, and then it was Aldo who finished him in the 4th round. So, I mean, these are quality opponents, obviously, that are beating him, but it's hard, dude. I mean, I think really what you got to do here is, if you want to make any money, you just got to hope that Volkanovski slips on a banana peel, and then you can kind of maybe attack those early KO props for Zombie. What's Zombie round 1, 2, 3 on FanDuel? That would be an interesting one to look at, because I feel that's his only path. And here's a way that you can actually bet the fight without having to, I mean, because if you're going to be heavy on Volkanovski and he does not get the job done, it's not just going to ruin your week; it's going to ruin your month.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be down 5 or 6 units just by trying to win 1 or 2 units off of this fight. So, maybe just root for Zombie and could take him from his only win condition, which would be an early starching of an unready Volkanovski. What's that line at?
Yeah, Korean Zombie 1, 2, 3 is plus 750.
See, now you could put an 1/8 of a unit down and win 1. That ain't bad. I mean, that's something you could do something with.
Yeah, like
But
even like as a hedge, like if your parlay ends with Volkanovski at the end of the night, right? Like that's a very solid hedge there.
that would be a good way to hedge it. Yeah. And if you are parlaying these guys, we talked about it last night on Stat Diggers. You could take the 4 biggest, guys on this card. You're not even getting plus money. So you might want to hedge out on that last fight. But it's always good when you do have super wide favorites and you're parlaying them, to have the widest line be the last leg of the parlay, so that you can hedge out and guarantee yourself some money. And that's probably the way to play this.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look at some other props here. We have Volkanovski by KO is plus 240. Volkanovski by decision is minus 140. We have the Korean Zombie by knockout is plus 900 on FanDuel, plus 1,200 on DraftKings. I think that plus 1,200 is interesting, like as far as a hedge goes.
Yeah. I mean, and Volkanovski by KO is interesting just
Yeah,
because
it is.
he does have great ground and pound. I mean, we saw it in the Ortega fight. Really, they were at the beginning of the fourth round and the beginning of the fifth round. They were very close to stopping that fight. And Herb Dean walks up now. The doctor had just checked out Ortega after the fourth round, right? And he like looks at Herb and he's kind of like, I don't know. So then Herb goes up to Brian and he says, "Can you see?" And Brian goes, "Yeah, I'm all right." And he's like, "Can you see?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And then he go, and while he's got the one finger up, you hear Ortega go, "1, 2." And just between the time he said 1 and 2, Herb turned around and walked away and go, "Okay, let's fight." So Brian was fucking guessing, and he guessed right, and
Yeah.
so that's how close that fight was to ending. So I mean, Volkanovski at KO is probably how I would play this. And then I could have a half unit down and win more than one. And that's probably a pretty good chance that on short notice, against, and especially if he does get a takedown or two and can land some nice ground and pound like he did against Ortega, that could be the shot for Volkanovski to get this guy out of there.
Yeah, plus 240. I'd rather take a shot on that than taking a shot on the minus 800, right? I know Lou said it in the chat earlier. Shout out to Lou. And then also I saw that Lags is on this play as well. The fight ends in KO is like plus 180. I don't think that's terrible because I could see either guy knocking either guy out. I think more than likely it's Volkanovski, but fight ends in KO is plus 180. Does that kind of interest you at all, or do you like the
That
plus 240 more on the Volk?
Nah, kind of like that plus 180. It covers both sides.
Juicy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a really interesting way to play this. That's I like that. I like that. That's a playable line for me. I think that's a good way to win the fight, and then you could be rooting for violence because you're getting the plus money for a fight ends in KO, but at Volk by decision is minus 180. You said, and
Like
now you
minus
got to
one,
be sitting there
yeah.
for 5 rounds, sweating that hoping he doesn't finish this dude. It's torture doing that, man. You can't even watch a fight when you got a guy to win by decision because you're just every time something heavy lands, you freak out. So maybe that's the way to play this fight.
Yeah, I think that if I was to play this fight, I think it would have to be something like that. Like, I think that's the only way. I don't want to lay chalk on a Volkanovski decision. I don't want to lay minus like 240 or something crazy like that on the 4-5 decision. I think it'd be like a KO. But let's get a little weird here. So we have Volkanovski to win by KO in round 3 plus 1400. Volkanovski to win by KO in round 4, 2000. And Volkanovski to win in round 5 plus 2500. I don't hate some sprinkles on that 3-4-5.
Yeah, man, and I got to tell you, we've seen him knocked out in the fourth and knocked out in the fifth. You know, Zombie has.
Yeah.
So, for that kind of odds, and I believe one of the guys was saying here earlier, like sixth round submission is plus 13,000. So, I mean, maybe, if you're feeling really froggy, you can go with that sixth round submission prop. If they do add an extra round of this fight, that would be really cool. But yeah, that it's always fun playing those lines. And like I was saying last night on Stat Diggers, even when you don't win, when that fight is in the fourth round or in the fifth round and you're holding like
Fun.
that plus 3,000 ticket, dude, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you won a little bit already. So it's a fun way to play it for sure. Just root for that, attritional knockout late in the
Mhm.
fight. And man, we've seen Volk pile up a lot of damage on the guys that he's fighting. So this could be a good spot to cash a bet like that.
Yeah, it's more fun than rooting for a decision. Like that's boring. It's
It
terrible.
is. It is. And it takes years off your life, man. I'm getting more and more gray hair, dude. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Like I get headaches when I bet overs and stuff. It's just so frustrating. But I saw Lou is also talking about, I don't know if he's being serious. Maybe he is because it's Lou, but he says the Korean Zombie round 5 submission looks like it's plus 6,000.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that would be something else, man. Plus 6,000.
Oh,
I mean, what are the odds? I mean, 600 to 1, I mean, that's 1/6 of 1%. You're not going to cash those too often.
let's see. Korean Zombie wins in that's interesting. Korean Zombie wins in round 1 is plus 2,500. Korean Zombie wins in round 2 is plus 3,500.
Huh.
That's how he
That
wins.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how he wins. I mean, look at second round sub against Leonard Garcia, first round knockout against Hominick, first round knockout against Bermudez, first round knockout against Moicano, first round knockout against Edgar. 25-1 for a guy who's won that way
Yeah.
4 times in 7 wins. That's
Yeah.
57%. I mean, when you're a 57% implied probability is almost like minus 150. It's like minus 135, minus 140. So that's
Yeah.
value. That's what we got to do. Like I say, there's no value on any of these Volk bets. You're having to, take them by decision, take them by KO, take them by sub, take a round prop in order to get any kind of value. The value is on Zombie. And remember, the guy's a top 10 featherweight. He's got great power. He's knocked out a bunch of really good fighters. So that's where you can actually make some money on this fight, is just, knowing that it's a mixed martial arts fight in a cage. Anything can happen. Wild shit happens in this sport. And you'll make a lot more money cashing on Zombie if that does happen than you will cashing on any of these Volk props.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that. Like, it's not often you see first round props at 2,500. Like, that's nuts. And then round two's plus 3,500. So I think another way to hedge if you are on Volk heavy this week, which I'm not. I'm not sure I'm going to bet this fight, but after talking about it, I think if anything, it's that KO prop. Volkanovski KO plus 240. It actually opened up plus 300. That would have been nice, and it was plus 300 for like a month. So kind of missed out on that one, right? But yeah, plus 240 for the KO. I think that's decent. And then also, I'm really interested in sprinkling like Volkanovski KO round 3, Volk KO round 4, Volk KO round 5, because those are very juicy as well. I think that's how I might attack it. And then, like Lou said earlier, I think the fight ends in KO. Plus 180 is a solid way to look at that price tag. I think this fight, it could finish. Both guys are very dangerous.
Yeah, because the fight doesn't go is already plus money, but fight ends by KO is probably, neither one of these guys has ever been subbed. And, neither one of these guys is getting a ton of subs. I mean, Zombie's gotten more than Volkanovski has, absolutely. But yeah, that's it's not likely. It's just not likely.
Yeah, for sure. So, so we went through it all, the tail of the tape, experience, finish stats, striking stats, grappling stats, strength of schedule. We talked through the betting odds. Weezy, what are your final thoughts on the main event? What is your favorite bet, and who are you picking?
Yeah, I gotta think it's gonna be and still Alexander the Great Volkanovski, and Zombie's just keeping the cage warm for Max Holloway, which is going to be the next matchup here after this one here. But yeah, I'll call Volkanovski. I'll say a 5th round knockout here, and hopefully he does get this done inside the distance. I think it's a great fight, great main event on an absolutely stacked card from top to bottom. Favorite bet could probably be fight ends by KO here, and I might even throw like a 1/10 of a unit on those first and second round knockout props for the Zombie, because that's his path. And I mean, it'd be boy, if you could just post that on Twitter after you hit it. I had Zombie by second round KO plus 3,500. Book
Yeah.
it. That'd be pretty cool for a 1/10 of a unit to win 3.5. But that's probably how I'd play this one. But yeah, the pick has got to be Volkanovski here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going Volk. I'll say by decision, but I do think I could see a late knockout there. My best bet is going to be that finish or the decision only minus 2,000. You heard it here first. It's gonna hit. It's a lock. Nah, I mean, but my favorite bet's probably the fight ends in KO or the Volk KO plus 240. And then also I do like those round sprinkles. I want to double check the prices, but Volk by a 3rd round knockout has some interest for me. Volk 3rd round knockout plus 1,400. Volk 4th round knockout plus 2,000. And Volk 5th round knockout plus 2,500. Those are very juicy, and I think he could get that late finish. But yeah, great fight. Like you said, we should be able to see Volkanovski Holloway next. I kind of would have liked to see that a little bit more. I think that fight would have been more competitive, but I'm a big fan of the Korean Zombie. Looking forward to this fight as well. So, Weezy, any final thoughts? And then also, what are you doing? I know you're going live on the channel tonight, right?
Yes, I am. I'm going to do a balls deep breakdown tonight, and I wanted to do something. I think there's a lot of interesting fights, but there's very few closely lined fights. So I wanted to do the Rosenstrike Tabura fight, heavyweight fight, closely lined, striker versus grappler. Break down all the aspects of this fight. I think it'd be a good one to do. So balls deep breakdown, 10 o'clock Central Time on the MMA Engine channel. And then tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Central Time on Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel, I'll be doing just the tip. I'll be breaking down all 13 of these fights from a statistical and tape study perspective. Finish up with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And we're going to try to find some angles on this card so that we can stack cash tickets like flapjacks and keep the winning streak going, man.
Let's do it. This card is going to be awesome. I cannot wait. Check out Uncle Weezy tonight. I'll be watching there. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. Just posted my full card breakdown prediction video. Make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe here to the MMA Engine. We're planning on potentially doing a new show Thursday. We're going to be talking about that. Hopefully get that out there for you guys. I think you guys will like it. But yeah, make sure you are subscribed so not miss out on all of that. Thank you all for hanging out in the chat. Mark, Zero Bob, Ratea, hopefully pronounced that right. We got Daz in the chat. Thank you for hanging out. Tristan, MMA Asphalt, Lou Betcha, all you guys, Herb Dean. See if I missed anybody. Appreciate you all hanging out. Leave a like. Good luck. UFC 273. Let's make